So come out of the closet today. This is my exclamation point. So I know I'm getting a lot of looks, and I know that not everybody in here is gay. I'm not one of those gay guys that thinks everybody's gay. I mean, you're all gay, right? No, actually, the reason I wanted to give this speech today is because I haven't always been the supremely confident young gay man that you see before you. Actually, for a long time, I was that kid. That kid didn't know how to defend himself from bullies, and he was pretty clueless about the world and really needed someone to be his defender. And so what I want to talk to you today about is coming out as a defender of equality. And one of the things I want us to think about is some of the ways that discrimination affects our community and the way it shows up in our community. I also want to talk about some of the ways that we can stand up to that discrimination, and then finally look at some of the short-term and long-term effects of standing up to this discrimination. So first of all, when we think about ways that discrimination affect our community, I know that there are other issues with discrimination. It's not all just about LGBT issues, but this is what I know about, so that's what I chose to talk about. And in a National Gay and Lesbian Task Force study from 2006, Nicholas Ray did a survey of surveys, so to speak, and came up with the number that 44% of homeless kids identify as LGBT. And essentially, that's a pretty big number, and it's also kind of a scary number, but I like empirical evidence, and I'm a critical thinker, so I like it when numbers are backed up with other numbers and research. So I want to look at another study that was done, and boy, my thing just went all off the charts, didn't it? That's okay. Another survey by Dr. Dussur from 2012 was a survey of homeless shelters, and what those actual service providers said were that 40% of the kids that they were serving in their homeless shelter were also LGBT. So the first one was 44%, now we've got 40%. Those numbers are pretty similar, right? Let's talk about Arkansas, because that's where we live. First of all, we're 45th in the percent of homeless kids in the nation, which is a really sad number. And the report that I looked at was actually a report card of states. That's where I got the information from. And it mostly deals with kids who are homeless with their adult family, so to speak. So there's a guardian or a parent involved. But at the very bottom of this report, there's a little tiny asterisk, and it says that these numbers don't include the 1,100 kids on the street that are considered unaccompanied minors, is what it called them. So if we apply this math, first of all, we've got 1,100. I know I'm asking you to do math now. It's just, sorry. We've got 1,100 kids who are unaccompanied minors. About 40% of those, what's that, about 750? So we're talking about 750 kids on the street in Arkansas. This isn't a problem just in California. It's not just a problem in New York. This is a problem right here in our own community. And so now that we've got some kind of an idea of what kind of problem this is, I want to talk about ways that we can actually stand up to this type of discrimination in our own community. And part of that is going to require a little bit of self-reflection. I know I'm asking you to do math and self-reflection. I'm sorry, it's getting out of control. But we got to decide what role we play in a discrimination situation. So Dr. Thornburg was good enough to do this report in the Journal of Adolescence in 2013, where he talked about the roles that we play as bystanders in a bullying situation. And Terry and Charles gave us a great definition of what bullying is. This is the guy that stole my lunch money and called me every name in the book in school, right? A reinforcer are people who, from the crowd, cheer on the bully. Assistants are people who directly help the bully in the bullying. We also call these people douchebags, by the way. And the outsider would be the lady with the baby carriage. This is like in 1950s, if you've ever seen the original Superman, this was always the innocent bystander. She had a baby. She couldn't get out of there quick enough. This had nothing to do with her. She has got to go, right? That's what we all think we are, right? And as a matter of fact, this discrimination sort of exists in our community because we all think we're that lady, right? And what I'm going to try to encourage you to do is become this guy. We know Superman, right? He's the defender. He gets involved in the situation, and he defends the victim. So we're going to do a little self-reflection, and we're going to decide which one of these people we are. Hopefully, we're going to pick the defender. And the STEP program, it's actually Step Up program, is the University of Arizona. They identify two kinds of defenders. There's A direct defender, that would be Superman. And then there's the indirect defender. That might be someone in an emergency situation. You might call 911. You might, if you witness discrimination on campus, you might contact the dean or the chancellor. You can, checkbook activism is a great way to do this. You give money to organizations that you feel socially compelled by and that do work that you believe in. So there are a lot of ways to do this. But, excuse me. But the most important thing that I want to leave you with from this point is this outsider lady. Silence equals permission. So we all have to understand that there's no such thing as an outsider. There's no such thing as an innocent bystander anymore, especially once you've done this self-evaluation, okay? So now we've kind of got an idea of the plan. Now I want to look at some of the short-term and long-term effects of doing this. So short-term effect of being Superman. Well, you're not bulletproof, and you can't fly. You're not particularly strong, not any stronger than the next guy. So being a direct defender may cause you to be physically injured, and that is a cost that you should definitely be aware of. But an indirect defender, the cost is going to be a little bit of time. Obviously, we've done our self-reflection. We've invested that time. You may feel so compelled that you want to volunteer some time or some money to an organization, yet another cost. We know that this program already is working in places. The Step Up program in Arizona is a really good example, and I mentioned that earlier. They have some emergency helping steps on their website, which are really great. Also, the Gay Straight Alliance here on campus is a really good example of building relationships with people with different sexual orientations, campus harmony, and what have you. Also, the effects, the cost of not doing anything, that's what we're doing right now, are far outweighed by the benefits of actually doing something. And when I talk about the cost of not doing anything, right now we've got this 44% of homeless kids on the street identifying as LGBT. Those kids, Dr. Thornburg in the same report told us, were far more likely to be at high risk of sexually transmitted diseases. They were more likely to be addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they were also more likely to be homeless, which is really scary. So by not doing anything and turning our back on it, we're actually allowing the problem to become a lot worse than it otherwise would be. So we talked a little bit about the long-term and the short-term effects of it. We've also talked about the plan and also how it actually manifests itself in our society. And I really hope that I've convinced you today to come out as a defender of equality because there are kids who really need you to do that. Again, when I was a kid, I needed that, and that's sort of the reason that now I'm the co-host of the Big Gay Radio Show, which is a weekly show every Friday from noon to 2 on KABF 88.3. It's the only show in Arkansas that addresses LGBT issues, and I do that because I hope that that little kid somewhere in the Delta that's listening, maybe for a couple of hours a week, feels a little less lonely. I know I would have certainly responded to that when I was a kid. And if you do follow this plan, we have a bright future ahead of us because we can end discrimination against LGBT people, and there will be rainbows and unicorns for everyone. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and with that, I will take your questions. Lucy?
Where did you do your service learning?
So part of my service learning was the radio show, KABF. Every week for 2 hours I go in. I'm still doing that. I've been doing it since August of last year. And when this class is over, I will still be doing my service learning. I saw another hand, yes?
Could you tell us what LGBT is and where it came from?
Yes, certainly. LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. I certainly should have put that at the very beginning. The term homosexual is clinical and very cold, and usually when people use it, they're not being particularly nice. And so LGBT is sort of not necessarily all-inclusive, but it's certainly, as we work out language about sexual orientation, those are sort of the best representations we have at this point. Certainly, I would expect those people put Q and I at the end. There are all sorts of initials. And I think that in the coming years, LGBT will certainly evolve. I hope that answers your question. Yes, okay. Anybody else?
I've never heard of the radio,
The Big Gay Radio Show? Oh, okay, the radio station, okay.
the radio station.
So you want to know more about the radio station? So it's a nonprofit organization here in Little Rock that is community-based radio. It's called The Voice of the People. Most of the radio, 99%, as a matter of fact, of the radio that you hear in Central Arkansas is corporately owned, meaning that the people that work in the building in Little Rock or in Arkansas don't actually make decisions about the kind of content that are going to be on the air, as opposed to community radio, where myself as a host and Joseph Birdsong, the other host, we decide every week what's going to be on our show. We don't have to get permission from anyone. We don't have to run it by. We just do it, and it's basically we get permission. No, we just get forgiven for saying terrible things. But again, it's our radio show is the only show in Arkansas that specifically deals with LGBT issues, and we play some really awesome music, so you should definitely tune in for that. Any other questions?
The number of homeless youth you mentioned in this state, that was shocking.
1,100, yeah. That's an estimated. That's the best they can come up with. But
Where do you think they are?
that's the really scary part, is that I think a lot of our homeless people we choose not to see. First of all, I think it's really uncomfortable for us. And I also think that when we do see a homeless person, we don't necessarily notice their age. So I think some of them are hiding in plain sight. Some people make arrangements, to stay here and there. There's actually, in the research, I came upon something that's really scary called survivor sex, where you might trade sexual favors for a warm place to sleep, or a place to take a shower, or a hot meal. These kids are hiding everywhere, and they're not going to come out and actually ask for help until they feel comfortable doing it, which is why we all have to come out as defenders of equality. Anything else?